10 out of 10. I isolated myself from all Spider-Man related news since the game was announced so I could go into this game completely blind and free of expectations, as I do with pretty much every game, and I loved it. Obviously you can tell by the title. And don't get it confused when I say the perfect sequel. I don't mean the perfect game. That's an important distinction, but I'll get into that in a little bit. When I went to look at what people were saying about this game after I played it, I started losing brain cells. There are people who love this game and there are people who hate this game. It's only natural. But never have I seen such stupidity on both sides. Seeing arguments from each of the camps really just makes me laugh. You know, now that I think about it, I have seen this one other time, which has driven me to a conclusion that makes so much sense I'm surprised this is something I even had to realize. The more annoying a fan base is about their love for a game, the more people are going to want to tear it down and shit on it, regardless if there's anything to shit on it for. And trust me, both Zelda and Spider-Man fans can be very annoying. The crazy thing is that there are things to shit on this game for, but for the most part, the detractors that some people have been naming are crazy. Like the fact that you can't walk into the subway, saying that the world's environment is just window dressing. It seems with all the pointlessly big open world games that have been coming out, people forgot that games have boundaries. Even the most fleshed out and open games have boundaries. This is such a non-argument. I can't believe the game won't let me exit the playing area. Why can't I go on the subway? Because that's not what the game was made for. Plus, why would you want to? It's a Spider-Man game.
What would Spider-Man be without his spider powers? I'll tell you, he'd be Man. Is that what you came here to play? Man 3?
Then there's this dude. Keep in mind, the bike only appears twice, or at least that's how many times it appeared when I was playing it. Once in the main mission and once in a side mission. So because he went out of his way to purposely put the game in a scenario it wasn't built for, and it bugged out, means that the game is just as buggy as Starfield, which is such a false equivalency. Why is Starfield even being mentioned here? It seems like the only reason you draw this comparison is you were bitter about the release of Starfield, and you're trying to drag it down to its level. But that's besides the point. Most of the negative things I've heard about this game have nothing to do with valid points like the gameplay or the story, and are hyper fixating on bugs. Like every game in the world doesn't have bugs. Even Baldur's Gate, a game that everyone on the internet, including me, tops off like it's the perfect game, was patching out hundreds of bugs every other day to refine the game after release. It's just the way it is. There's no such thing as a perfect game. Now, all that being said, the people dick riding the game are also bugging, because complaining about the bugs is kind of valid. As long as it's not stupid things like this bicycle bug, bugs can be a major detractor to your experience. That was the main reason that the Cyberpunk launch will go down as one of the worst launches in history, despite being the beloved game that it is today. So all the Spider-Man and Sony fanboys need to chill out and learn that your favorite thing can be flawed. And bugs aren't the only flaw that this game has. Instead of hyper fixating on inevitables like a stray bug here and there, how about we focus on what they did to Mary Jane? Man, I'm dead. This just ain't right. Mary Jane went from certified baddie to uncanny. I don't know what's off about this, but something is just not right. They didn't even have to change it. She looked fine. I know it's maybe been a few years since the first game, but this isn't just Asian. She looks like a completely different person entirely. It's not just Mary Jane either. Peter's model also looks noticeably worse. Again, I can't put my reason on exactly why, but someone fucked up. The only character that looks better than any of their previous appearances is Miles. They did my boy good. New cut, skin looking nice and pristine. They didn't do his suits good though. 99% of Miles' suits in this game are terrible. Actually, some of the worst outfits I've ever seen. And then to make matters worse, they swapped his current canon suit, which looks fine, great even, and gave us this. Why? Out of all the terrible suits they gave this man Miles, the worst one is his canon one. I don't even know how to feel about this. This gotta be racially motivated. Now, at the beginning of the video, I said this was the perfect sequel and not the perfect game. It has its flaws that I spent the entire video up until now highlighting. But every single gameplay aspect that I didn't like in the first game and the Miles game was fixed in the sequel. And they added new things I didn't even think they'd even consider to change. How am I supposed to ever play the previous games again when there's no wingsuits? And the web swinging is just way better. I expected them to leave the web swinging alone since everyone's talking about how much it makes you feel like Spider-Man. And Spider-Man 2, the weight and momentum just feels so much better. The speeds in which you can travel in this game are fucking. Another amazing fix was the Mary Jane scene. You know, there's a plethora of different things I can think of to switch up the gameplay in a game like this, but pausing an action game to do a stealth scene as a civilian shouldn't have ever been considered when they were making the first game. These scenes are so fucking boring. And if it makes me sexist because I hate the Mary Jane scenes, then it makes me racist too because I wasn't fucking with the Miles ones either. All it did was just make what was supposed to be an emotional scene where his dad died in front of him an annoying and unnecessary stealth mission. They've taken a huge step from the last game though. The Mary Jane stealth scenes remain in the game, but this time I can just run around and tase niggas without a care in the world. They even gave Mary Jane a boss fight, which was kind of cool. I don't see why she had to have these gameplay sequences in the first place. They could have just left it out, but as long as it's not as boring as it was before, that's a win in my book.
Is this nigga serious?
Now this next improvement is what gives this game legs to stand on, because if this wasn't fixed, this would be an entirely different video. I didn't like the combat in the first two Spider-Man games at all. Well, at all is kind of an exaggeration. It was just a worse version of the Batman Arkham combat, which is sad because Spider-Man PS4 was a decade after. The enemies just felt so incredibly spongy. The scaling between which enemies took what damage made no sense. The big ass wheel of gadgets was so unnecessary. When am I ever using 90% of these? So let's be real. The only ones I use on a semi-regular basis were the impact webs, the web grenade, and the suspension thingy. All the others were just unnecessary. Like, he's not Batman. He don't need all these gadgets. But the changes they made to the sequel just blow everything out of the water. Replacing that big ass scroll wheel of nothingness with just 4 gadgets is one of the best decisions they could have made. Not only does it make it easier to access the gadgets, but enhances the flow of combat. Instead of being like, hold up, let me pick my gadget real quick, you just hit R1 and a face button, boom. Sometimes less is more. Same with the abilities. They introduced specific abilities in the Miles game and those were good, making them even better in this game, providing you with even more abilities to choose from and allowing you to switch and swap for different combinations, which allows you to cook up crazy combos all with a tap of L1 and a face button. Very simple, very intuitive. It just feels amazing. And then even on top of that, they added a parry, which introduces a whole new layer to combat. Because now instead of just dodging everything that comes your way, there are different kinds of Q. There's the white/red one that you block, parry, or do whatever. Then there's the blue Q that can only be dodged. And the yellow Q that can only be avoided by jumping specifically or parrying, which makes these fights so much more dynamic. Adding a parry and 2 extra dodge Qs makes even fighting normal enemies more enjoyable. And then they added a health bar. I didn't know how much the absence of a health bar would make the bosses feel trivial, but it helps so much more. The bosses are actually bosses now with phases instead of ambiguous cinematic sequences. In the other games, you just swing after the enemies and hit them a few times until a cutscene triggered. Now you have to actually fight the boss, utilizing the techniques available to you in the game, so it feels more like you're playing a game. And it hardly gets stale because you're constantly switching back and forth between Peter and Miles, who have different abilities, fighting different bosses with different weaknesses, so you can't just use the same strategies for every boss. The fact that the combat in this game is actually good increases the replayability of this game, and I might just play it again after I'm done with Mario, to be honest. This video is already long, and I haven't even talked about the story yet. And I really don't have much to say. Like, it's really good, and I liked it a lot, but there's nothing really that sticks out particularly to me. Actually, there is one storyline worth mentioning, and it's not even a main story, it's a side quest. Probably one of the best side quests I've ever played in any game ever. The side mission starts with the search for this woman's grandfather. She lost sight of her grandfather and fears for his safety since he's so old. She also realized how much she has taken the limited time she has with him for granted. After searching the area for him, you find him sitting on a bench, reminiscing while looking over the lake, where this scene plays.
Daughter asked me to find you.
Granddaughter. Oh. Well, tell her I'll be back in a minute. I proposed to my wife here. Right here, where we sit.
Wow, really? I have to ask, how'd you propose?
First off, we had to go to the zoo. Never met a soul who loved animals more than that woman. I was terrified. I meant to ask her at the meerkats. She said they reminded her of me, but my knees were knocking, man. I couldn't see straight. They fell into that pond there, face first. You ever been in love, Spider-Man?
Yeah, I have.
It's beautiful. Nothing more beautiful.
Listening to this man describe the love he has for his late wife was one of the most heartwarming things I've seen all year. The way this was written was so raw, real, and authentic. He realized he doesn't have much time on the earth and thinks about the life he lived with the one he loved. It's just so beautiful. Then when the daughter catches up to you, you can listen as she takes the first steps toward appreciating her grandfather more. You can hear it even after the scene officially ends, just walking away.
I know, Grandpa. She was always saying, Tasha, if you don't eat that sandwich, they will.
Like the emotion and the writing, the music, everything in this scene is just so perfect. And it really made me think about the people in my life and if I was appreciating them as much as I should be. If only there was more writing on this level in the main story. Well, there was one moment.
No wonder your family left you.
Let me know what you think in the comments below. As far as I'm concerned, the only L Insomniac took this time around was the character design department. They really need to get their shit together for the inevitable sequel. But on all other fronts, they really did improve on pretty much everything. And that's all you can really ask for from a sequel. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and give it a like. Don't be shy. Thanks for your time, take it easy, and as usual, have a good one.